Welcome to the Truth Has No Sides podcast. These conversations will be had to expand the minds and the consciousness of you, the listener. If you like the content of the show, please like the video and subscribe to our channel to help this message be seen and heard by more people. Thank you for being here and enjoy the episode. Okay, 2 red dots. We're both moving. Today's episode is with a buddy of mine that I met through soccer. Another soccer club buddy that we're going to talk to. His name is Nixon Pierre. I'm particularly wanting to do this interview with him because spirituality to him is not a thing. It's not a word he uses. It's just, he's got a different approach to it. He's got a very simple approach to it. He has started cutting my hair as well. His passion for the things he does, how kind this human being is. He's probably one of, if not the kindest human beings. And he has he's got no reason for it. He's just a kind human being. So when someone asks why he is the way he is, just because. If someone tries to bring up spirituality or some type of religion to think of putting him in a box that that's why he is, why he does what he does, he doesn't subscribe to that. So I wanted to talk to him about that because I'm sure there's a lot more people out there like him that don't go from religion to spirituality to something else. They're just good human beings. So Nixon, will you give us just a quick bio of who you are, where you're from, what you do, that type of stuff?
Well, my name is Nixon Pierre. I actually, I'd like to say I'm from New York, but I was born in Jamaica. I grew up in New York, moved to Utah, Provo, Utah, when at 17, and I've lived in Utah ever since. Uh, as a profession, I do hair. I'm a stylist. Uh, but I don't like to consider myself. If someone asks me who I am, I don't usually say I'm a hairstylist. I'm Nixon. Just Nixon.
It's
And you?
awesome. Yep. Trying to figure out where to go with this conversation. What brought you to Utah? Because that is a drastic shift from Jamaica, New York to Utah. I mean, they are just polar opposites of atmosphere of people around in these states.
Yes. What brought me to Utah? I came to Utah as a student on a scholarship to Brigham Young University. But
You went to BYU?
yeah,
Oh, I'll be damned. Okay.
um, but really, what drove me to Utah was just opportunities. Living in Brooklyn, there was very little opportunities for young Black men or young African American or young people in general. And uh, coming to Utah, I knew nothing about Utah. I didn't know anything about Utah as a state. Uh, the only thing I knew that there were Mormons, and I knew that was a religion. Nothing else about it I knew. Uh, as a matter of fact, I had a friend tell me that people out in Utah had horns, that the Mormons had horns. Yeah, and I thought that was rather funny. But yeah, I've lived in Utah ever since. I have my entire family's here. When I say family, my immediate family, children, uh, and I've lived here ever since. That's it.
And how many kids?
I have 3 children, one boy, 2 girls. Uh,
Boy,
yeah, one boy, he's the oldest, and I have 2 girls, 16 and 21-year old. And that's my reason for existing. Those are my reasons for existing.
I was going to say that one of the earliest conversations you and I had was you got very passionate about how you raised your kids, how you talked to them, how you dealt with them, how you raised them, what you let them do, what you exposed them to. Um, that seemed to be something that you was very important to you as you grew up.
Yeah, I had a unfavorable how would I say that, circumstance when I was growing up. I pretty much grew up absent any parental supervision. So that allowed me to have the liberty to do the things I want to. It allowed me to think, when I say think critically, to get things done. And it allowed me to accept things as they are. And one of the things I wanted to do was the way I felt, the way I saw other people parenting while I was growing up. I noticed that there were lots of flaws in that whole system, and especially how I felt uh, without having parents. Um, that drove me to kind of change the parenting structure, and that's kind of where I first started saying, I'm not afraid to stand alone. I could parent the way I wanted to, and not how society expected me to. Because what I saw was everyone, and we still do it presently. I mean, it's the most common thing. When people parent, they parent as a form of control, as opposed to being leaders. Because we are supposed to lead our children. I mean, if you really look at any of the uh, data, if you look at study parents, how teenagers react to parents, and we see they don't learn by what we say, they learn by what they repeatedly see in their society or at their homes. So I thought if I were to be a good parent or a good leader, I would have to, one, remove the fear from the parental fear that kids have. Like, I'm controlling you, I'm forcing you to do that. There's a consequence of doing something the correct or incorrect way. I wanted to remove that and teach, allow them to know why they were doing things. What's the benefit of it? What's the advantages? What's the disadvantages? And thereby, they got to choose. They got to grow themselves. They got to grow as thinkers. They got to grow and be balanced as human beings. So I thought that was the best way to parent. And when I did with my first child, most people kind of criticized me for it. And they thought I was going to have a kid that was rebellious. He had too much freedom. So it would allow him to make incorrect decisions. And the opposite happened. And the narrative after that was, Nix, you're lucky. You lucked out. But then I repeated that cycle again, repeated that same mantra with my second kid. And this time, everyone thought, oh, it's a girl. So girls are harder. That she's going to run away. She's going to be uh, kind of rebellious, as they called it. But it didn't happen. And she also is like has been a really great kid. We have great trust. I encourage trust, and so that's kind of my basic. When I say basic, my basic construct for parenting: trust and seeing myself as a teacher.
So I like to just write myself questions as I listen. So you didn't have that experience. You didn't have parents like that. You didn't see that done, right? So
I
you went,
didn't.
so you went about it completely differently. Where do you think that
Yes.
came from? Where do you think that came from? Right? Because as you were talking about with the statistics, the kids don't do what we say. They do what they're shown, what they see. You didn't see that. So where do you
No, I
think that
didn't
came
see
from?
that.
Where did that come from?
Somehow the way my brain thinks or the way I think is how do I best solve something? And I saw a lot of lots of things that were going on, not only with parenting, but with other things that we perpetuate in our society. And there's clear evidence that it's not working. It has a high failure rate, I should say. But we still continue to do it the same way over and over. So I think it's just the way my brain works. The other thing is what really molded me as a kid was when I was 3, my mom actually dropped me off at my dad's house. And my dad at that time was the first time seeing me and took off. And I haven't seen her since. So I didn't have a mother. I never had that motherly love. I never had that care, that nurturing care. So a lot of what I saw was the streets, but I saw it as a kid, not as an adult. I didn't have the same stress that adults had. My stress was whose friend's house could I sleep at, or should I wait till my dad comes home and goes to sleep and then try to sneak in the bag? Uh, so I think that molded my character as a person.
Well, I think we talked about that last time I saw you, or the time before, where for most going through what you just talked about, it would absolutely impact their lives in a negative way. It would be something that they would use as a story as to why certain things are not going right for them. You went the complete opposite of that, right? People, you talk about these stories. So when you tell me this stuff, my normal reaction is like, holy shit, man. Like you would never know that with how caring and how loving and how you are around strangers, how you are around the people you work with, how you are around the guys at the soccer club. Your kindness is, is pretty rare. So why, again, that's another question. Why
No,
why did that mold you in a good way rather than
I don't
a
know.
bad way?
I think that part of me has been developed through my adulthood, and it's my search for excellence and my search for, I would have said truth before our conversations, before our previous conversations, but uh, and the other thing is, I want my existence. I felt like I stayed alive for a reason, and my existence should be useful. So a lot of things that we do poorly, we never learn how to do it. So even kindness, a lot of people we talk about kindness. It's kind of like just words, and I think
Mm-hmm.
not everyone realizes that uh, to be kind, if you're thinking about being kind, you're not going to be kind, because you're living almost a show. You're only being kind because you people are present. So for me, it's just a way of life. I feel I've learned how to, and that has developed in my adult life. I've learned how to communicate better. I've learned how to listen better. Uh, Human behavior, I learned how to identify human behavior and collected and have maybe a few tools that I can utilize that would interact a lot easier. So that might be it. I'm not sure. I don't have a big, like I told you, like I said before, I really didn't have a plan. People like, how you mentioned that, hey, I should have dealt with that differently. I had no plan. So my plan is to be alive, participate, uh, be as, not the best, but be as good as I can in everything I participate in. But that has been developed over a period of time. That didn't start when I'm not even sure that was a direct result of how I grew up. Uh, Here's another thing I want to point out. Other people see your struggle or how you grow up more as a blockade or a reason you do something. But I think the people that are living that life get to think about it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even as a kid, I knew I had dressed, I had like, difficult situation and unfavorable situations, but it gave me a lot of great opportunities. When I say great opportunities, opportunities to see things, to think through things. Uh, I had freedom. When I say freedom, I had the freedom to really do whatever I chose to, and I had to make those decisions uh, at a young age. So that allowed me to see how, if I was getting the proper information, how I would be able to make decisions. So I had to go collect the proper information. So instead of as a parent, you getting it fed to you, I would go ask other people. As a matter of fact, I had one of my friends, we were talking the other day, and we were saying that when we were young, we were 14, 15, we would go on the block and ask all these guys, questions as to how to get to college. Hey, what how do they take taxes off your paychecks? Simple things a parents would teach you. But I remember those guys just kind of churning themselves at me and was like, get out of here. Why are you asking me that? But what I realized is they didn't know that information. We were 14. Looking at their age difference now, they were only 21 or 19. We as kids thought they were older, so because they were older, they had the information. So it's the same kind of construct that you being in, let's say you grew up in a great family, you had great leadership at home, but then when you saw my situation, you was like, oh my God, this guy has, a really bad situation. He's going to more than likely not do well in life. The only difference between both of us are opportunities. If I grew up the same way and had the same opportunity you had when we were 18, I'm probably as 90% likely to be as successful as you are, or you 90% likely to be a fuck up balls, a screw up also.
Hmm.
So that's how I looked at it.
Well, that's why I like these podcasts and I like these questions and these interviews because, like we also talked about, you could have exactly kind of in the same presence you talked about, where a kid with incredible parents can turn out to be a crackhead, and a kid with horrible parents can turn out to be a Harvard grad, right? So my questions are always, there are no right or wrong answers. There's just your answer, just Nixon's answer.
Yeah,
There's a considerable amount of people that would answer that question the complete opposite way, and they would have a completely different story than Nixon has, because at such a young age for you to be asking those questions, that's where you go a little bit deeper into reincarnation. You go a little bit deeper into your soul contract and that type of stuff. That you know, we came here with certain things we wanted to experience, because it just, there's no rhyme or reason. There's probabilities, there's statistics to see how many people turn out a certain way, but just simple stuff, just like you talked about.
yeah.
Great
One of the things.
parents screw up, shitty parents, incredible human being. So, anyways, go ahead.
So one of the things that I thought about myself was I was searching for truth, like the truth about humanity, how we really are supposed to live, behave, and then having religion, spirituality, all these things uh, in different contexts, but still live all those different contexts and be a great human. And after I had that first conversation with you, and you was like, everyone has their own truth. It's all bullshit. So it started to make me ponder, like, hey, that is true. And it came down to simple things as every just interacting with other people. And I actually learned that from just our conversations. But I took it to, that's why I said my brain goes crazy. I took it to just everyday relationships. Uh, and the way I said, what really made me discover that was everyone has their own truths. Things are right, wrong based on society or the society we live in, right? If you look at an institution just as, let's say, marriage, right? When we get married as younger people, we have this box that we think like all the things that we are supposed to do because we are married. And it's just that word, and it's supposed to look a certain way. And we fight for that and we become stressed. Some people control each other, some people uh, compete with each other, but all thinking during that time that they're doing the right thing until the other person becomes strained at it or with it. Does that make sense? So let's say you and I are having we're married or we're having a relationship. You have your own idea of what you want it to look like. I have my own idea of what I want it to look like, but we're coming from different sides, right? So I may do something and it's my truth, or I believe that I'm doing it the right way. And you may be strained because you like, I can't believe it. Why does Nix do that all the time? And then you become resentful over a period of time. And usually we may have a discussion or an argument about something totally different. But because you're so strained and so resentful, we can't even have a proper come to a solution. So you see how everyone is fighting for their own truths, but it leads to a plethora of other issues. So what I came up with is in every situation, this person you query like, what does this situation look like to you? And if I have a knowledge of it, then it's easier for me to deal with you amicably. But that's in every situation. The way you describe me as being kind, I mean, thank you for that. But I don't think of it as being kind. I think about it as being useful to in my journey.
Okay. I mean, but like we said, usually everything we talk about, you've got a different description for how someone would describe it. So that's kind of how I've gotten used to talking to you. Because my next question, because you brought it up, is what is what is spirituality to you?
That's a good question. That's the I don't know. I've talked to a few people about spirituality, and I think everyone has a different answer. But to me, I can't decipher if I'm spiritual or if I'm not because I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know what it looks like, or I'm not sure what it is. It a belief? Is it a sense of there's something around you that's omnipotent or something that's bigger than you? Like that's at least that was coded to me by someone else. But I don't. I just want to, for me, it's just, I feel like we're here to live and things are going to be good, bad, just how we created, how we make it. Um, if we just do the things that are necessary to live abundantly. Like when I say live abundantly, just be present every day. I don't think I could look at that as kindness. I could just look at it as I'm just living.
That's I like it. I mean, that's kind of why I think that's the whole point of this podcast and you being on here. Because if I hear another person tell me I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, I'm going to kill
Yeah,
them.
but I don't, yeah, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great because religion is one thing. It's a box, it's a construct. When that lets people down, they think they're breaking open into something new. They're breaking into something different, and then they box themselves into spirituality, right? So a lot of spirituality is kinder, softer tone, meditation, crystals, um, maybe switching gods, switching religions. Even though you don't call it a religion, spirituality is just a different religion, and it's a new box. Humans don't realize that we think we're always trying to break out of the box, right? As marketing people say, be creative, break it, be think outside of the box. So we think we leave the religious box aside, but our human minds don't understand that we don't function well without boxes. So when people ask you, Nixon, these questions, and you come back with your very atypical answers that doesn't put someone in a box, I'm sure they try to convince you that there needs to be something. They try to convince you by putting you into a box or saying, "Yeah, Nixon, that's I understand what you're saying, but that makes you spiritual." No, because
Mm,
I did a decade of true spirituality, meditation, enlightened teacher. Um, Learned all about the books, read all the books, were around some amazingly incredible people. And like I said, I realized that spirituality is just a different religion. It's a more advanced religion, as people would call it. So it's just another box. And I'm not a big fan of spirituality. I'm really not. It gives people an excuse to get away with a lot of shit.
yeah, I think it's just, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there are a lot of things that we do, and I think it's just a narrative.
Yeah.
Um, like, I think people want to belong to a club or to like you said, a religion. So if I say I'm not spiritual, then tell everyone knows they're either concerned or kind
Or
of
you're
starts backing away.
an atheist, or you're
Yeah,
this or that. It's like when I tell people like, "You want to drink?" I'm like, "I don't drink," and they're like, "Oh, sorry to hear that." It's like, no, I just don't drink.
yeah, no, don't
I'm
drink.
not coming out of AA. I didn't have a
Yeah.
problem with it. I just don't fucking drink. God damn, man! Like, just stop putting me into a box. I just don't drink.
So
I don't like
yes,
drinking.
everyone has that thing, but that's the thing. I don't. If you're around me long enough, you'd realize I don't conform to any kind of social norm unless I think it's useful. I don't have to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still hang out, I still do things every day, but the way I think of things are just differently than other people do. I think we all do things based on what is told to us, what is handed down, or what we expect the other person to see. And I don't live like that, so I don't have to worry about uh, if this person is going to validate what I'm doing. Um, I just want to live like my life, my journey. So, and usually if when people, I like to engage people when they do that because I, sometimes I realize they don't have a reason for them. Like people would say, I'm spiritual. And I was like, describe that to me. And I have no answer. It's usually some vague answer that usually doesn't even pertain to what I would think spirituality is. But I mean, I accept it. That's their idea of spirituality. But I think everyone feels like, well, I should join in and say, hey, I'm spiritual. oh, I'm religious. And I think religion and spirituality seem to go together. So if you're religious, people just assume that you have some form of spirituality.
Hmm?
If you're not religious, then there's a group of people that be like, well, I'm not religious because I don't belong to your little congregation, but I'm spiritual. I get to connect. I believe there is the follow up to that is I believe there is a God and there's, something that made all this. And I don't even know where that came from either. They made all, um, but for me, the way I look at it, this is our life. We're here. We're present. I have no idea that there's another life or what's to come, or I'm never present there. And if I am, I'm not conscious of it right now. So I'm not sure why I should be using this life to restrict myself. Well, that's religion, or to prepare for another life. Like I have to pass an examination, or I have to uh, be vetted in because I am so good or so I did so many of these things in this life. I don't think that's a thing. I think that's just our social construct here. It's think about it. In school, you learn when you're a kid, you go to school, you learn to collect information, and then they give you like a exam at the end of the term, and that's how you're supposed to move on, all right, to another level. And I think that's the same construct they're trying to use for that scenario, that we're supposed to do all these things. And mind you, it's most of it is all controlling. Like if you don't, here's a consequence. But it's all geared towards making it into the other life, which is better. Why can't we just live this life how we want to, be nice to humans, do things? I do believe in promoting great societies, and I think we have all have our part to play, our individual effort to give to society. And I widely believe in the humanity moving forward, like progress. Like we couldn't be, still lighting fires with sticks if humanity wasn't progressing. We couldn't go from the 1940s to the 1980s and have industrial progress, and then from the 90s we have the internet came in, and humanity even became crazy, better. Some might say worse, but there are good things and bad things in every time. But if you look at it, we're still just living.
So, would that be your answer to why we're here?
I think that's the reason I'm here.
Okay. Just to live.
Yeah,
The interesting thing is, though, it's very difficult for humans to talk about just living without saying what you just said about progress. So, is part of why we're here to progress?
yeah, I'd like to humanity to continue making progress. I don't think if you look at where we started, or even think back, uh, let's say 100 years ago in the 1920s, the things that we had as humans to just live, uh, work. Uh, we were still hunters back then, and that was just 100 years ago. And now we can, although it's run, we have a lot people controlling it, but we have so many different things that we can achieve, or we can do, or we can use as humans. So, I mean, I think that's where it is because I don't see us going back. People always like, oh, it's better to like back in the day. It's not. It wasn't better. It's like that's to me that sounds like in the Bible they talked about Moses being 300 years old, and I was like, bullshit. This is crazy. So we're not going back. So and we shouldn't be stagnant. if I had to live forever, I'll push the boundary to see as far as we can get it. Can we? So that's my thought on life, on humanity. But a lot of the things that I think, I just thought of something. Some the things that you pointed out about kindness. I think a lot of these things I learned from Stephen Covey. Um, and a lot of it back then was like the personality ethic. You know, people were big on respect, patience, humility, uh, ambition, uh, trust, as because trust is one of the biggest things as we communicate in society. Um, I tried to I adopted a whole bunch of these principles and thought it just worked well as we interact daily with humans. Just create pleasant environments because I feel like if we create pleasant environment for humans, we work better, we grow better, we're more cohesive than creating unfavorable situation environments. So I think that's the point where you brought up the whole kindness there.
So you talked about Stephen Covey. Did you go to one of his seminars way back in the day, or read one of his books that kind of triggered something in you? Was there anything? Do you feel like there was anything such as that, since you brought him up, that helped you create who you are, how you see things, how you view things differently, how you don't like to box things in, or was this just all Nixon?
Yeah, I'm not sure because I don't think I had a plan for that because a lot of these things that I've learned, one of the things that were was good for me is when I was in Provo in 1990, I had uh, let's say I lived close to Stephen Covey. I had a situation where I got kicked out of school. Uh, I was living with the bishop at the time, and uh, they lived pretty much across the street. And I remember uh, Stephen would ask me to come to. Remember that time I was maybe 19 to go to it used to be called the Covey Leadership Center in
Mm-hmm.
Provo. And, but I went a couple times there, but the the material didn't start sinking in till later. But for someone in their early 20s to have that kind of material and to start working on it, like trying to acquire tools on how to communicate better. One of the things that drove me to even be to seek out that information was uh, I used to have the biggest inferiority complex because one, I didn't have parents, so I live in a society where everyone talks about their moms, their dads, what their family did this. Yeah, so when conversations would come up, if anyone said mom, dad, or uh, even where are you from, it would make me go into panic. Like, not really panic, but I'm like, I do not want to tell these people because I already feel inferior and I'm going to feel even more inferior. So it took me a while, and I thought at maybe at 19, I was actually was watching a Montel Williams show, and they were talking about all these different people, and they were saying that all these people have their own, each family has their own problems, and in the end, he said something really poignant that uh, the person across from you puts their pants on the same way you do, 1 foot at a time, and that kind of started to change how I thought about my inferiority. Like I kind of started putting myself where I would be in uncomfortable situations. When people talk about, you know, their parents, I was there, I wouldn't contribute. I wouldn't actually add to the conversation or contribute to the conversation, but I would continue to be present, although it was uncomfortable. And what echoed in my head every time I had that scenario was these guys put their pants on the same way as I do, 1 foot at a time. So, who cares what they think about me? So that created an environment of me now being present and not being inferior. But it took me another maybe 20 years to actually tell people my life story. 10 or 12 years ago, I wouldn't be telling you my life story.
Okay, so real quick, I had a question about that, but I think you just answered it. So you would never talk to anyone in Utah, the people you were living with, or Stephen Covey about this stuff, about the inferiority complex, about how you approached life, nothing. So you were basically just quiet, being present, taking it all in like a sponge, and then adapting it to your life as the years went on. So you had some
Yeah,
pretty good.
and
So you had some pretty good influences, but you weren't really asking them questions. You were just accepting what they had to teach.
yes,
Mhm.
like I felt like I had, that's what I'm saying. The difference between uh, two 18-year-olds, uh, their ability to thrive and succeed is opportunities. If I have a mentor at 18 that can help me create opportunities, and you're this have the same background, everything, I'm going to succeed better, quicker than you are because I have access to opportunities. That's the difference. So what it was for me was I was learning because I didn't have any of that from my parents, but here was the opportunity to learn. And I wanted, like I said, I wanted to be good at it. I wanted to be good at communicating. That was the first time I heard about communication as listening. I thought communication was me telling you what I'm doing or what I want to do. So, like I said, I think the 7 habits of highly effective people, if I have to classify that as anything, it's my Bible. I referred to it even yesterday. Yeah,
Yeah, so that was kind of why I was getting around to those questions. So he was very influential. That book was influential. What
yeah.
you just made a comment that you wouldn't be sharing your story as of 10 years ago. Was there something that happened? Was it just was it a slow progress and then you just slowly started sharing, or was there a light bulb moment, aha
I feel
moment
like I was
of
living a lie.
because you weren't sharing that stuff?
Yeah, I feel like I got to the point where, I mean, I live a pretty good life. So I think people seeing the results of all the work that I put in started coming up with assumptions like, oh yeah, it makes this is, and it became that who I was. And I was like, that's not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like people be like, oh yeah, Nick's almost to say like I grew up wealthy or I grew up with uh just access to to education, which I did, but I didn't have that. When I say education, like I didn't have anyone to teach me anything. I kind of had to learn these things on my own. And even how I deal with hardships now, everyone thinks that, Max, you don't even care. And it's not that I don't care. I have gone through these things so many times, so many different, so many difficult situations that my body or my brain just tells me, look, just relax. It's going to be fine on the other side. So when everyone seems to just be like tense about anything, my thought is usually what's happening, what's going wrong, how do I create a solution? Or if it's unfavorable, how do I make it favorable. And there's two ways I can. I can change whatever it's in my environment, and if that cannot be, if I can't uh, affect that, then I can change me. I can remove myself from that situation. I can think past it. I can. So that's what I'm talking about with tools. It's almost like an extreme ownership kind of thing. Like I have extreme ownership. If I was driving down the street and I got T-boned, although the person who T-boned me probably ran a red light, my thought is not what this person did. My thought is shit, I got T-boned. What's next? Do I get up and get surgery? Or if I'm in surgery, be like, shoot, what do I do? Call my kid, let's go. I gotta figure out how to do this. But to me, that's what I was doing. I drove there at that time, and it is what it is. But it's not. I try not. Remember, we were talking about if you're not a victim, if you don't feel victimized, you don't have the reason to be mad. You don't have the
Yep.
reason to clutter your mind for 3, 4 days, 5 days being upheaved about something that happened when you're the only person to change it.
Well, I mean, that comment you just made, like 3 or 4 or 5 days is long. There are people that spend lifetimes with that anger.
Lifetimes, my point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that
So,
spend decades with that stuff, and that is no different than, it's more extreme, but it's no different than you 10 years ago, finally at 40 something years old, coming and saying, I'm living a lie." Right?
yeah,
That's where this shift is happening on this planet. It's not allowing people to lie to themselves anymore. It's pushing them over the edge. And you had so many instances, as you said, that you've gone through so many things that as it came up, you knew how to handle it. The reason the world is so insane right now is uh, people lied to themselves and suppressed so much over the last 100 years, decades, lifetimes, generations, all that karma, all that trauma, all that hate, the anger, the resentment, what they really felt about a situation, and just pushed it down and lied to themselves continuously. Like you said, I was living a lie. This shift on this planet is not allowing people to live a lie anymore. And that is incredibly, incredibly difficult because they don't have the tools to handle the new thoughts, the new emotions
yeah,
that are coming up on their lives. And they're really digging in deep to how they react to others and situations. And it's terrifying.
yeah. You said it correctly. We don't have like, they don't have the tools to do it because I didn't have the tools until, or I had the tools. I just didn't know I had the tools. And it's not until later I realized, holy crap, I can, I can say this and be fine. And I'm not worried about how, if someone thinks I'm inferior or not. Um, and it changed. It definitely changed how I lived. It changed. I felt like I was Nixon before, but then I'm really Nixon. So it brought me back to like my kid days when everyone around me knew who I was. They knew even though they were bagging on me, it was still love because it was my absolute truth. So really, it's kind of like how we solve things. You get the absolute truth and then you move on from there. So I think that a lot of people that we say that are living a lie is because they're not living for themselves. They're living for the neighbors or the people around them. That's my point about being kind. If I have to be kind or judged as being kind when people are present, and I can't do the same, I don't have the same behavior when someone who I care about knows me is absent, then I'm not a kind person. I'm just putting on a show for being kind. Here, it's,
Yeah. Well,
one of the things,
one of the things, let me say one thing real quick. One of the things I just heard about. Everyone talks about love a lot. They say that the highest frequency on this realm with humans is love. And there was one guy that did a study, a few people that did a study, but he talks about the highest frequency actually for a human is authenticity.
That's
So when
correct.
someone is being authentic, everyone equates that to being kind and loving. No, Steve Jobs was being authentic. Authenticity means what that soul came here to do in that time. You
Yes.
know, we have certain constructs of what we think are good and bad, but
Staying true to your
authenticity.
values. Yeah.
Yep, and those values shift, which goes back to our conversation many times ago, where it's our own individual truth. So, what is right to one is wrong to another. What's right to an atheist is wrong to a Catholic, vice versa, et cetera, et cetera. So, but they say the number, the highest frequency is authenticity. So Nixon went from being Nixon to being more
Being the
Nixon, and
authentic Nixon. Yeah.
that's why I always make comments to you. It's very hard for me not to make a comment when I'm around you, like just an amazement of how authentic you are, how nice you are, how kind you are. I know you wouldn't consider it that way, but that
Yeah.
authenticity of who Nixon is that highest frequency, and that's why a lot of people are very attracted to you. And secondly,
No, everyone says that. People are so attracted, but it maybe is, but
it's a
we're
magnet.
humans.
It's a
Yeah.
magnet. It's an absolute magnet. That authenticity. And there was a great teacher that talked about if what was going on in our mind, if our thoughts were broadcast as soon as we stepped out of our house, no one would leave the house.
Yeah.
And that's probably why we only live to be 80 or 90 years, because
I know you said
we're
that. We have so many of these things.
we put so much energy into unauthentic ways of being because we're so terrified of what others think, what they want us to be, societal norms, and everything else. And that's something I'm inspired. You inspire me to be more authentic because that's something I really need to work on. So please continue.
Well, thank you. No, that's all I had to say on that. It's just been, I was happy. It gave me a great sense of freedom once that happened. It's like it almost changed how I felt about life. Because I felt like for a while that was almost like a shade over me. Like I was like, am I not living my true self? But like I said, we make progress. We continue to, like you told me, when you think you're at the top of the mountain, you get to look around and be like, oh, I got another mountain to climb. I'm only at the bottom. Yeah. A lot of those things rang so dear to me, like in our earlier conversations about, you know, everyone's journey. You can't compare this person's journey to your journey. That has resonated with me. And I look at things, so just as we talk about growth, just those conversations has changed how I looked at a lot of things.
Good. Good.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's that's where I feel my most authentic. I'm sure you and others have seen that when we start talking about this type of stuff or these type of conversations, my whole energy shifts. It just alters. I love talking about this stuff, and I think that conversation sparked because you talked about critical thinking. You love critical
yeah,
thinking. You were reading a bunch of different books. You wanted to learn. You wanted to expand, and I remember you talking about expanding in a certain way, and I'm like, that's great. That's great to expand in that box, but there's a much bigger box if you want to expand into that. And you were
yes.
you were you were so open to it. It was great.
That's what I said. Enlighten me. I think that's what I said right up. I was like, enlighten me.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been great. It's been actually I've told you that before. It's been a great enlightening, not only enlightening, but just allowed me to think of or look at things differently when it comes to just how we live, the things, the reasons we're here, uh, how different constructs that we have in society affect our lives, and we kind of use those to judge by which we judge other people. I think that allowed me to even break through that barrier because now I look at everything. Before I looked at ideologies, like how people think, the group of collection of norms you have from one society to the next based on, what they've experienced. Now I look at just the whole construct as a whole, like just different things in society that they gave to us. And we continue to participate we in it, but it's a lot of it. I mean, if we really think through it, like critically think it through, it's a lot of bullshit,
Oh, I
for lack of
mean
a better
everything.
word.
Yeah, it's everything's a construct. Everything we think we have a sense of freedom or free will, but we are programmed more than we could ever
We
imagine.
are
That
more,
hat.
you enlightened me more in that than I thought, than I even assumed there were. Because one of the things I've been doing was trying to live my own life, my own way of doing things within the law, within reason, but not just depend on what I was taught or what society is doing, is to, especially if there's a high failure rate. My thought always is to, we could figure out a way to do this better. And, or some of the things we know, it's not working. Look at how we teach humans. We talk about that in classrooms. We have the same curriculum, the same classroom settings that we had since the turn of the century, the 1920s,
The
the
Industrial
1910s, right?
Revolution. Yep.
Yes, but we have clear mounting evidence and data that people learn differently. We need to teach differently, but we still do the same things.
Yep. Yeah, that's that system we built, and we're all a part of it, whether we like to admit it or not. It's
I
a
mean,
very
yeah,
very
there's not,
strong system.
we could use our thoughts to be uh, not participate as the way they do, as society wants us to. You pointed out something earlier about love. Uh, I think we talked about that. Even love, I see love totally differently. Love is an action word. Most people, when they talk about love, it's like this grand feeling, that these warm, fuzzy feeling. And I think we missed the whole boat on that, because the reason you feel attracted to someone when you just meet them, that euphoric attraction, is because they're doing things that's favorable to you, that you like, that makes you feel that way. And that's the actions. It's the same way you continue to love. If I love someone, my actions should be what denotes to them that I love them. And from the actions, you get the results, that fuzzy feeling, right? But when we look at love, it's like, if someone doesn't agree with you, like, oh, they don't love me, or I don't love them any longer. Uh, Even with we talked about parenting with your kids. One of the things that I talk to my kids about all the time is unconditional love. You don't have to love me unconditionally. You got to love your kids unconditionally, but I'm going to love you unconditionally until this journey ends. And as humans, that's all we need. And it's not a feeling. It's not like I'm telling my kids, okay, I'm going to stay here and feel these warm, fuzzy feelings for you. It means that if you need me at any time, I'm ready for action. That's it.
I think that's a little tougher for most people to understand, because I think a lot of people I found they always say, if you need me, let me know, or next time you do something, I want to be a part of it, or I love you. I want to, like, I have found in the last couple of years that very few, if any, stepped up when I really needed them, because of the constructs and the conditioning, the fear of them being put into the same situation, or their own fears, their own insecurities about money, or whatever it is. I have a hard time with that. So I'm with you. I'm with you.
For
Even
me,
even those
love,
even those closest to me, when I've needed them, they didn't step up, and it was very eye opening, very eye opening.
Yeah, because people just say they love you. It's like a thing to make
Oh,
you
it's
feel
just
good. But yeah,
such a simple comment that everyone throws
yeah.
around.
I taught my kids no, and I always refer to my kids because they're the closest in that realm. But I have no expectations. No matter what you, if they did something poorly, they did something good, they did something in return, they didn't do anything in return. It's not. You have the same amount of love. You have the same level of love. When if I can be there or that love is always there. If you call me without any questions, I will be there. That's
Beautiful.
unconditional love. Like they said, through the rainy days, the dark nights, whether you're wrong or you're right, I'm there. That's unconditional love.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would need a refresher on what that really means. Um, Go ahead.
I was going to say that what we were taught is that we love someone because they act favorably to us,
Hmm.
to us. That's it. And if they don't, then we don't love them any longer.
Yeah. Yeah. If you love me, you'd do this, or if you love me, you'd be this
Yeah.
way. If you, yeah, that's,
Yeah, the same
yeah,
way if someone has strife with another person and you're friends with them, they feel like if you continue to be friends with the person they have the angst with, then you don't love them as much, which is the strangest theory.
it is. It's a very strange theory. I've had a hard time.
Uh,
Yeah, I have a hard time with a lot of things that people ask of me, or people want me to do, or people want me to be upset with. Um,
yeah,
I don't get upset quite often. I don't have hate for quite a few people. I'm sure the people that have tougher times with other individuals who have had a lot of trauma, they have every right to be angry and resentful. But I have a hard time with that. I have a hard time with that as well, being too angry at people, or at least it lasting long. I've been
yeah. I
upset
got
with
about
people.
30.
I've had resent. Go ahead.
No, sorry, sorry that I interjected. I was going to say it's a 30-second incident. No need
Yeah,
to get mad for longer than 30 seconds.
yeah, yeah. And I've seen with the shift on this planet, there's been a lot of stuff that I've suppressed, that a lot of anger has come up that I didn't even know existed in me. Um, that there's certain points where I probably should have been more angry, or I should have spoken up. I wasn't living authentically through. I just was trying to be the nice person, the kind person, trying to just not deal with conflict the correct way. And there's been some stuff that's come up in me in the last couple of years that kind of scared me, but it dissipated. It's just flown on, and I've felt my more who I really see myself to be more authentically coming through.
So,
Just a
so
process.
you're saying because you weren't angry and you were pretending to be nice, then that has resurfaced.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's the feeling from that? Resentment? What's that feeling?
Just the normal human feelings. It's like witnessing someone else go through anger, witnessing someone else go through frustration and resentment, and sitting back wondering like, where the fuck did this come from? Why do I feel this way? It's almost like I. It's been a unique. It's like looking in the mirror and not noticing and recognizing yourself. But again, it's that suppression, that not living your authentic self, lying to yourself about saying, that doesn't bother me. That's not that big a deal. It's going to come up. And that's what's happening on this planet right now. There's a lot of stuff coming up. So I'm glad I had my teacher. I'm glad I've had the stuff I've learned over the past decade, because there were times that were very, very difficult to go through. But like you're stuck with Stephen Covey, my teacher, and a lot of stuff that I learned made me realize it was just part of the process. It was like being 15 years old and being the freshman in high school, and everyone was beating on you and bullying you, and you were the little guy. You turned 16, you got your license, and everything turned out okay. But there was a process of just, you were 15. You had to turn 16. You had to go through that process of being 15, and naturally you turned 16 and life went on. So there's a lot of stuff that came up in me that just naturally dissolved, but it had to come up. It was not going to be let go.
But it's gone now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I was when you said that, I was thinking the way I see that is uh, it's not about being mad or not. It's about just accepting the situation. So one of the things I learned from Covey was, and it kind of just that really got me out of jail. When I say jail, but like the prison of my mind. Um, Between stimulus and response lies your ability to choose. And that time between stimulus and how you respond to that stimulus. And when I say stimulus, it's like what someone says, what someone does, anything environmentally that's not you doing it to yourself. But within that period, really creates the integrity in that situation. And it's in any situation. So if let's say it's something that your emotion that comes up with that is being mad, between when that happens or whatever it is that happened, if you can use that space in between before you respond, before you even go into uh, that anger mode, you think it through and decide how do I best create the situation for myself. And if you repeat it uh, regularly, you get to do it in a really quick period of time. Like, you only need 10 seconds or you only need 3 seconds. But I think that's a whole different approach than even someone doing something or something happening. And I either could be authentically and lash out in anger or express my emotion or pretend that I'm not mad and suppress it. What I'm saying is it's almost you creating your solution to your piece. So for instance, we talked about that. Like someone could come up and say something terrible about me. And there are two things I usually say about that. If I heard someone said, yo, Nick says, this person or he's done this, my thought is first is what have I done? Examine my behavior. And if it's something that I have done and they deem it that way, I could always, think that, hey, they just interpret it differently. Or maybe that was poor behavior. I need to correct that. Or I could be like, look, it is what it is. This person said that if I have to be mad, I'd rather go talk to him, be like, hey, uh, obviously you thought this about me. What warranted that? And how can I repair that? And if usually, people that go off saying things, if it's incorrect, you wouldn't have a conversation. They either would dumb it down and be like, hey, I didn't say that, or whoever said that was not true, and then you live it at that. Or the person would engage, be like, hey, well, this is what you did, but here's my chance to not be mad and be like, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you were going to take it that way. Or I don't know what I was thinking. I need to correct that. Thereby, I don't have to walk around with that, or I don't have to think about it because I don't feel like I'm a victim. It's the same thing I tried to perpetuate and I don't have a lot of breakups. I had two breakups, like real breakups. And one of the things people think, like my son even says, he's like, dude, you have no conscience. Like your conscience died in your childhood. But it's not that, because what I would tell him is, it's like, dude, if I sat here and be like, hey, I did all this and I did all that, and she still was lazy and I was like, then I become the victim. But I did all these things because that's what was necessary to do for my family at that time. I did it willingly. I wasn't doing it because I wanted her to, you know, shower me with all these things after. And if we're going apart, that's what it is. There's no going back to me, going back and thinking, okay, I'm going to create a victim inside myself. And here's what, oh my God, we're going apart because this bitch didn't do this and she didn't do this. And I've been waiting for 20 years for her to do this and it's not happening. No, the way I looked at it was that was my journey to this point. It was unfavorable at that point. So I'm just shifting. Whatever happened there, I was supposed to do it. So I don't feel like that victim mentality. And we call it a victim mentality, but I don't feel like I want to absorb anything else. If I can leave it, not only leave it there, I can learn from it, but that was my participation that day, that week, that month, that year, whatever it is. And today's a new day. That's it. You
Well,
walk away without thinking anything.
well, that sums you up perfectly. And one other thing I would like to take note, I should have noted this at the beginning of the conversation. Uh, we did not plan the t-shirt color.
I know. I
Just,
looked at that earlier. I was
yeah,
like, oh, imagine.
yeah, that's my fault. I may need to Photoshop a different color t-shirt on me or something so it doesn't look awkward.
Or
Um,
you can put mine, but give me a black
yeah,
t-shirt.
yeah, exactly. That last 5 minutes of you talking about how you handle that sums you up perfectly, and I'm sure
Yes,
that that
I think that's who
inspires a
I
lot
am
of
in a
people.
nutshell.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of people out there. They're going to listen to this and they're going to be very envious of how you handle that. But I like how you give people an understanding and kind of a roadmap of how you handle it.
And that's kind of what I want to, when I say my life being useful, especially being the job that I do where I see people on a daily basis, I want to continue to teach or to talk about it so people realize there is an alternative. You don't have to just have the behavior that you see every day of how you react to things. And if I can influence one person, I'm pretty sure that other person's gonna have a better, communication, relationship, maybe one issue they can solve better. And that's it. Because like I said, when I'm done, I don't want to be, hey, Nix was like a great stylist. I just want to be like, hey, Nix was my dude. I'm doing this because of Nix. You heard? Yes. Or
Well,
you have a memory of Nix.
there's one last question for you, but
Let's go.
you sum up Gandhi perfectly. I'm sure I'm going to ruin the story, but a journalist, Gandhi was taken off somewhere, and the journalist was trying to catch up to him, and he's like, what do you want to let your followers know? What do you want to let your people know? What do you?" It just kept asking him, and I think he handed him a note, and he opened the note, and it's a famous Gandhi quote. It said, "My life is my message." That's you,
Yeah,
Nix.
your participation.
Yep, that's you perfectly. Last
Well, I'm
question.
glad it's that way.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. I am too, and I'm glad I get to
Yeah,
cross paths with you. Um,
likewise.
what is truth to you?
Truth is whatever someone is, well, first I have to think truth in what context. Because for me, when I solve things and when I think of things, I think of what's the absolute truth of something. Like, what is the actual status quo? What is happening? What I have? This is my absolute truth. And then where do I get to? What do I want to get to? And I think like for a human being, truth is just what you are, where you are, who you are, uh, your thoughts. That's your truth. And I think everyone is different. So I can't say my truth or your truth is the same, if you're thinking of something and outside that, like, uh God or spirituality or any of this, I don't think of anything like that as truth. I think your truth is your actual want to say, I couldn't say status quo because status quo more um, applied to like a position, but it's like your life, whatever it is, whatever your thought is, whatever, wherever you are at present is your absolute truth.
There you go.
It's tattooed all on here. Humility, truth, they are. They
Nick's
are
that's that,
redemption, compassion, respect, loyalty, empathy, humility, humility, trust. They're all there, and truth
beautiful,
is at the top.
beautiful. Nick's man, that's an amazing hour and 15 minutes.
My man, thank you for having me
And
too.
that
I appreciate that.
I love how quickly
Yeah,
these conversations go by. I'll get it uploaded and edited, get you over a copy, and we'll get it out to the world. But I appreciate you giving me time, man. This has been great. We'll get it out.
man, thank you. I might want to do this again. I love it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of therapy, huh?
Yeah.
All right, man.
All right, my
Thanks,
man. Have a
Nix.
good one. Yes, thank you.
Later, bud.
You later.